When you start After Effects for the first time, you will be greeted with the welcome screen. Now, if you don't want this each time you boot up the software, you can always come down here and uncheck Show Welcome Screen at Startup. That way, you'll boot right into the software and you can access the file menu from there to create your new projects or open up existing projects if you wish. But if you are looking at the welcome screen like I am, we will want to create a new composition. Now, creating a composition will in effect also create a project file. We can have multiple compositions if we wish. It's sort of like Premiere if you are at all familiar with that software. You have a project file and you have sequences within that project file. A composition is kind of like a sequence. So we will be creating a new composition here, although throughout the rest of the series we will be working with existing project files I have included with this course so that you have something to work with as we progress through After Effects. So let's go ahead and click on New Composition. And what's going to happen here is we will need to define some settings for this composition, and you'll have to do this each time when you create a new composition. So different compositions can have different settings. First, let's name our composition. Now, in this case, we'll want something descriptive. It's best to keep things as descriptive yet as concise as possible. So let's say you're going to create a sequence or a composition that has a rain scene. Maybe you have a shot of someone in the rain. Well, we can come up here and we could put Max in rain as an example. So once you have that, you'll want to check out the presets for your composition, or you can go in and create some custom settings. The presets give you access to a lot of popular options when it comes to resolution and frame rate for video. So if we come over here and click on the drop-down menu for preset, you can see we have many different options. Now, in the case of this series, I know I'll be working with 1080p footage at 24 frames per second. So the best case for me, if I were to choose a preset, would probably be going down here to HDTV 1080 24. So I'll go ahead and click that. Now again, this will depend on your footage. You may have 4K footage. In that case, you may have to go in here and change some settings yourself to make sure that the composition can accommodate for such a large resolution. So you can see right here now I have my width and height, and I can also define these if I want. So let's say again, if I had a custom width or height, I could come in here and I could click and I could change the numbers, or I could take my cursor and hover over the number and click and drag left or right to create the resolution I want. Next is the pixel aspect ratio. Now in this case, I know I want square pixels, but let's say you were working with an anamorphic lens. Well, you can come down here and choose anamorphic as an example if you wish, but we'll just leave it at square pixels. You have the frame rate, and that was defined by my preset, but you can always come in here and even click on this arrow and choose from a list of popular frame rates. You can also choose if you want to have your frame rate drop when you're working in your composition in After Effects, and this can speed up performance at the expense, of course, dropping frames, which is right here. You can choose if you want that on or off. You also have your resolution. Again, this is with working with the composition and not the final output. So by default, you can have a full resolution when you're working with your composition, or you can choose half, third, quarter, or you can go to custom, which will give you access to just how many pixels you want to work with horizontally and vertically when you're in your composition. I'll just cancel out of that. And for right now, I recommend leaving it at full. When we start working, if you're having performance issues, we can adjust this later on. And then you have your time code and your duration. We can leave the time code as is. The duration is more important here because we can set up just how long we want the composition to be. So let's say, as an example, we know that the video clips we're going to bring in will equal out to about 2 minutes. Well, then you could just come over here and we could just change this then to 2 minutes, just like that. And then you'd be good to go. Now, at any time, you can always go back to these settings and change the duration should it become longer or shorter than you first anticipated. And then you have the background color. This will show up whenever you have no footage or images currently in your composition. So you could choose a black background color, or you could use the eyedropper and you could pick a different color. Like we could go right here. You can see that the OK button is blue, so we could pick that blue color. We could pick gray. Or if there's an image or piece of footage that you want to grab from, you could do that as well, just as long as it's on one of your monitors. Or you can click on the color swatch here and choose from any color that you wish. In this case, we'll just stick with black and click OK. Now there are some advanced options with your composition settings. We can click on Advanced right up here, and you can choose the renderer for your 3D effects. We'll just leave this at Classic 3D. You can also do different things, such as preserving your frame rate when you're working with nested files, or preserve the resolution when working with nested files. And these are all things that you can play with later on. We're just going to leave this all at default. The same goes with your motion blur. You can adjust how the motion blur looks right here with the shutter angle and shutter phase. But again, we'll leave all of that as is. But as you get more used to After Effects, you can take a look at these options later on if you want to change things up. So once all of your settings are good, you can click OK, and you will now have a new composition in your new project file.